I was the guy that would change my song from George Michael to like NWA before I entered the parking lot. Just because I was worried about what people thought. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, if you're listening to George Michael, you probably shouldn't be worried about what people think. So
I love George Michael. I don't even care.
I'll just come out and say it. I love George Michael.
Yeah, I love George Michael. So,
That's the title of the podcast. I love George Michael. Okay, yeah. Guys, so that was just a little bit from today's episode. Rare thing to happen. I've got Dr. Lisa and Ryan Bathgate in, both of my co-hosts in for one weekend ramble, so we can have a conversation about all sorts of different things. Hey, listen, if you like our content, remember to like, comment, share, do all those things. I appreciate every single interaction so very, very much. It is the best thing you can do to help us support and spread the message. The title sponsor for today's episode is FAR Canada. That's Families for Addiction Recovery. They are a free service. They offer group therapy, they offer peer support, and they offer phone support to loved ones of people who suffer in addiction. Check them out, guys. You can learn more at farcanada.org. Hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Watchers, listeners, supporters of all kinds. Welcome to another episode of the Weekend Ramble on the Adolescent to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, in Krabi, Thailand. Halfway around the world, I have two of my co-hosts with me today for a rare appearance. First, of course, is my beautiful weekend co-host, Dr. Lisa. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm very good. I'm excited about today. It's been a while since we've had Ryan with us, and so I'm happy to be doing this with you guys.
It has been. I was thinking about that as I was driving back from the store earlier. It's like, fuck, when is the last time? Right? Was I still in Calgary?
I think it's when Ryan was like sitting out on his balcony.
Yeah,
I can't remember when it was, but I remember. Yeah.
So that must have been last summer.
It was last summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say it was August. I had to go find that episode once to make it real. So I was, yeah. Anyway, and of course, my other co-host, Ryan Bathgate. How you doing today, Ryan? We never did intro you, so we got to do that. So
yeah,
Lisa kind of jumped the gun on that for me. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I had one job.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good, man. I mean, got recovery ball today, so I got 3 games. I've done this. I gotta go in Surrey, and it's like 30 degrees here. It's nice for once. It's been raining a lot, and then like life is actually pretty good outside of like the consequences that I find myself in consistently. But like you can't cut corners in life, and there's no shortcuts. And if you try, you get what you get, and it's just a way of the balance of the universe has a way of taking care of that. And so when I'm walking in a path of humanity, then it seems like my world becomes more enriched with the human experience. Whereas when I'm walking with an agenda of I'm going to say, use the term self-will because I don't really know a better one. Then it seems as though whatever desires I'm acting upon are usually hurtful to myself and others. So, I talked I talked on Wednesday about that karma police thing, and it's kind of something that I'm revisiting here. The balance of the universe, I think, is something we take for granted, but understanding that if I live in a deficit, I've got to find a way to add asset, and if I don't, then it's funny how the universe will interrupt whatever path I'm on in an effort to try and right that ship. So I don't know what's out there, and I don't really care, but I do know that there is some serendipitous acts that have happened throughout my existence that have always seemed to bring me back to a place that gives me access to find myself again. And I've been lost a few times. It's just, like I said, this is number 3 for long-term recovery. And, I heard someone the other day say something about it becomes really difficult with those that have a scientific mind and any element of intelligence. And like, I was like, yeah, shit. Yeah, it is. Because, and then not to mention this, like, authority issue, so someone's telling me what to do, I'm telling them to go screw themselves, so like, it's just like this constant friction until you're just like, fuck it, like I need to I need to follow whatever's going on, because the way I'm doing things clearly doesn't work. And with especially with the addiction element of substance use disorder, the guarantees are that you lose things and they start slowly falling away and falling away and falling away. Like, the hope
Until they
is
do,
to
right?
be able to catch that before you lose it all. Like, it's an old saying, you don't got to ride the garbage truck all the way to the dump, And I sure like to get close, though.
I feel like I'm gonna one day. It's probably never gonna happen because it'd be way too much work logistically. But I'm gonna take out all the cliches that we catch on this show and we're just gonna do like a whole episode of no explanations, no nothing. Just say the cliche, move on to the next one. Right? Yeah. Try see if we can turn it into a conversation, right? Like an actual back and forth conversation. I feel like there's a podcast to be had there. Go ahead, though, Lisa. What's on your mind? Yeah.
It was just interesting listening to Ryan talk about that, because, and I've thought this at various points in my life, like, for example, when, my loved one has gone to addiction recovery, and, and then I get to spend time hearing about that sort of third hand. I've often thought to myself, shit, like, we all need to do this. We all need to go to addiction recovery. Like, and I think that there's, obviously a lot of suffering that goes into being in a situation where you often find yourself in addiction recovery. And I'm not minimizing that, nor do I ever wish that on anybody, including myself. But I think, if there is a silver lining, like, I feel like there's a lot to be said for learnings that happen through addiction that I think we all could benefit from. But it's like, because of the magnitude of damage and destruction that addiction causes, you're sort of forced to do it. But, like, I think a lot of people lose themselves in their life at times. It's just
for all
that
sorts of different
sometimes,
reasons, right? Without a doubt.
totally,
Even if addiction had never, and Brian, you could probably attest to this too. Had addiction never been a part of my life, there is no way I would be taking the time to grow with intent than I am now. I would be another cog in the machine. You know what I mean? And doing whatever I was doing and getting through my life and all of that. But because of that reset, I guess that comes with blowing your life up. Right. Yeah. And then, but now, so to grow with intent, I think, is a rare thing for muggles, if I can say that.
Yep. Totally.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I've had people, I've had other physicians, say to me, like, why would you enjoy working with people suffering with addiction? Because for some, just like anything, it's like, I also don't want to be an emerge doc dealing with somebody coming in with their eyeball hanging out of the socket, different strokes for different folks. Yeah. But I've often said that, like, for me, people in the recovery community are some of the most empathetic, insightful, wise, beautiful people I've ever met. Sometimes it's unfortunate circumstances that have gotten them to that place. But, again, through whether, just really shitty consequences that have put them in a place in their life where they've needed to take that hard look, they've needed to do that work. And it's like, we could all benefit from a lot of that, but life doesn't force us all into it at times.
Hey guys, before we get too far into the episode, it's my pleasure to let you know that another one of our sponsors for today's episode is AARC. That's the Alberta Adolescent Recovery Center. They've done an episode with us a couple weeks ago. Next week, they're going to be back on for another episode, this time with their executive director. Check them out, guys. You can learn more at aarc.ab.ca. Back to the show.
And so I was just thinking as I was listening to Ryan talk.
Something came up for me there when you were talking about struggle and existentialists believe that to live is to struggle, but to find meaning in that struggle is life. And so, really, so in other words, like, who said struggle is a bad thing? It's not comfortable. It's like guilt. Guilt's a great thing for us. It sucks, but it is extremely important to the process and especially in the development. And, like, I've said it a million times, in all the years I've spent in classrooms, it's struggle that's been my greatest professor. And I've learned the most about myself and the world I live in because of the hardships. And then, the old saying, my old sponsor used to say, I'm going to swear here, because it's a quote. He said, you don't learn fuck all in the good days. And that to me just, nothing made sense at the time whenever anyone said anything to me, but it really resonates today. I mean, I've been I've been at this a long time, and I probably sat in. I'm gonna go hundreds of meetings, and like I was thinking to myself, like this time through, it tells you in I'm gonna quote the big book, but it tells you who doesn't make it. And those are the people who are unable to be honest with themselves, constitutionally incapable of being honest is the actual term. And so like I didn't hear that for 18 years of meetings, like, and I'm thinking about why, and it's because of ego. Like the chances are that I'm sitting there trying to think about the next share that's going to change everybody's life and make me famous, like, and meanwhile they're reading the things that tells you how it works. It says how it works. That's what it's called. The title is How It Works, and it tells you how it works, and it tells you who makes it, and it tells you who doesn't. And I never heard it until I was 25 years into this, which is just and all of the things. And it's funny how you just like, all of these directions and how to find a level of existence that encompasses a saturated spiritual element to it. It lays it out for you, tells you how it works, literally. And I didn't listen to any of that because
it's kind of like watching The Usual Suspects. Every time you do it, you're going to catch something else. Right?
Did you realize, looking back, Ryan, like at those times, did you realize that you weren't listening?
No, not at the time. No, because
benefit of hindsight, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Looking back, it's again, it's like the amount of arrogance that has been constant in my life is just unreal. And so, looking back, it's like, I was more worried about optics. Like, I was the guy that would change my song from George Michael to like NWA before I entered the parking lot, just because I was worried about what people thought. You know what I mean? Like,
well, if you're listening to George Michael, you probably shouldn't be worried about what people think. So
I love George Michael. I don't even care.
I'll just come out and say it. I love George Michael.
Yeah, I love George Michael. So
I love it.
Here's the title of the podcast. I love George Michael. Okay, yeah, that's it.
Gotta have faith, right?
Wake me up.
Yeah. Freedom, I won't let you down.
Freedom.
Come on, man. Father, like Careless Whisper. Come on.
Everybody hates George Michael, but everybody knows the lyrics. Everybody knows the lyrics, right? So
So but I mean, like, and I look at it, and it was like every the way I spoke was to somehow influence what you thought of me. The way I dress is somehow influence what you thought of me. You know what I mean? Everything that I did was in really deficit-based arrogance that was all about fulfilling intrinsic resources with extrinsic stimuli, which does not work. And ultimately that void grows, and we find ways to fill it. And like it became eventually that coping mechanism, and which for me is drink alcohol or drugs, and so. But before that, there was other awful behaviors that I was doing in the midst of sobriety. And so like abstinence is just such a small part of the process. Like, and we know that because people get abstinent all the time and they turn into assholes. But to be abstinent with enlightenment takes a different path, and it is about this connection within. And I like the Alan Watts talks about the Hinduism, where they believe that God is within all of us, and I hate to throw that word around, but it does make sense to me that this energy source is within me. It's not something I look for outward, and and like so that becomes like, for me it made a lot of sense this time, because I just can't believe in a guy that with a white beard sitting on a cloud. Like, that's not my deal. You know what I mean? Like, I can't resonate with that. But when I have a conversation with somebody that transcends time and space and creates this connection full of emotional interaction, and I walk away from that is the enlightenment of the human spirit connecting with another one. That's the evolution of a human existence within, that happening. And so like, that gives me peace. It gives me fulfillment. It gives, and there's a somatic shift. There's a paradigm shift that happens. And what do? I completely look it over, and I walk away, and I go, yeah, that guy's pretty cool, man. That was a good conversation. I really like him. Instead of like, what an amazing experience to connect in a level that transcends space and time, that is evolutionary to the human spirit, and that is like enriched in connection, like
And I think to have a conversation like you're describing, one that, does create shift, one that you do walk away from feeling inspired and feeling better, requires vulnerability, which is the opposite of ego, right? So again, it's like if you're in an interaction and you're all on your ego, you're not going to have connection like what you're describing. So those conversations require the absence of ego.
Yes, and I
And
don't know if it's the opposite though. I think it's more the absence than it is opposite, because like it's like
fair.
resentment and compassion can't hold the same space at the same time.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't think ego and vulnerability can hold the same space at the same time. And like
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Like and so what do we need for vulnerability is probably one of the most important values, which is courage. And I cannot
Mhm.
have access to vulnerability without courage. Once I have access to vulnerability, I have access to all the beautiful things in life that I've ever wanted to experience, like love, like happiness, like joy. But that does not happen when I have a defense mechanism up. When I got walls up, I
Mhm.
got a shield up, whether it's anger or whether it's ego or whatever it is that's keeping me from connecting with you, which ultimately keeps me from connecting with me. Make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. It's
It does.
interesting. One of the things too that I was just thinking of, and I don't think I've ever had this thought before, is that because you're saying, compassion takes courage, or vulnerability, I think would be the same, right? Vulnerability takes courage.
100%.
And I had this moment where I had this like realization of how lucky I am in that, because I think I grew up in a very safe home. I didn't experience trauma as a child. Yeah, I got a bit bullied and stuff, but like I didn't have like I have always found vulnerability easy.
Yeah, no, not me. No, I ain't my
Right? But
story.
again, but if you grow up, I can very much appreciate that if you grow up where the world is not a safe place for you, then of course it's going to take an incredible amount of courage to be vulnerable.
Well, and to be honest with you, like that, those are the years that I valued my ego, because that
Yes.
was
Well, that's
that,
probably why. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that was my protector. And then my escape was literature and sports. So like to go and like you think about that, you got an 8-year-old kid that is afraid to be at home and afraid to be
Yeah.
out in the world because of what's happening at home. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like there's no safety anywhere. And I think I mentioned that last time about that Southern Comfort. I mean, that was my
yeah.
first
Yes, you
experience
did. Yeah.
with what I would call peace. And today, my goal in life is not sobriety. It's just that sobriety is an access point to everything that I want for me,
Necessary step
because
along the way
it is
because of
without
SUD,
it.
right? So, yes.
Yeah. And so I cannot access those things without having sobriety as an access point. And when I say sobriety, I don't mean abstinence. I mean the things that I need to do to work on myself and my ability to carry and build relationships with other people. And so I cannot do those. Alcohol or drugs become another coping mechanism for me, like ego, like anger. It's a disconnect, it's a shield, and it keeps me insulated from everything outside. But like we know, you put a pot over a flower thinking that it's gonna, or a bucket thinking it's gonna help it from the wind and all that, and it ends up wilting away and dying. And that's the same thing that happens with me, is that I'm basically putting an old rusty bucket over myself and wilting away and dying, thinking that I'm protecting myself. But really what I need the wind to blow me and create that strength in my root system. And I need the beautiful heat of the sunshine and the nutrients of the soil and the rain. And I need all that stuff in order to fully prosper as an organic being. And so, I find those things now so when I say, you say vulnerability and I'm talking about sunshine, it's the same thing relative to what I am as an organic being. And so, those nutrients become love and they become laughter and things like that, the things that I need. And I cannot experience anything in that realm of beauty as long as I'm hidden behind walls, or as long as I got a bucket over me, whatever metaphor you want to use.
Yeah.
I am inaccessible, and that really makes me. It gives power to the things that are happening outside of awareness to really run feral in my life, and so that's why, like, we talk about expanding the horizon of understanding, because there's so much happening. Alan Watts says, every day ordinary consciousness leaves out more than it takes in, and so that means there's so much shit going on that I don't even know outside of my awareness. So my goal in life here to find this level of peace is to constantly there's a guy named Hans Gadamer, a phenomenologist, who's got a theory called the horizons of understanding, and it is basically it kind of speaks against the terms like recovery and treatment, because he's saying that what all of our experiences create a comprehensive being, and we're constantly expanding. So when we talk about recovery, we're not actually recovering anything, we're adding to what already exists. And so that's what, so that's why I find that recovery term a deficit term. I just don't have a better one, and so like my goal is to be in a constant state of expansion relative to my horizon of understanding, and the easiest way to do that is to really admit to myself that I don't understand a lot. I don't really know what's going on. I don't know what's past the Milky Way. Like, I don't know everything about the human experience. And as soon as I know everything, then that glass is full and you can't fill it up anymore. And I want to be that. But arrogance makes that glass full. You can't tell me nothing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
it's so true.
Yeah, rant over.
And I think, like going back to the earlier part of what we were talking about, but one of the things for me when I'm working with and I don't work with kids, so if I'm working with an adult, like I'll say to them, like, we're going to take a session, sometimes two, and we'll spend hours talking about childhood. And I've had patients even say to me, like, I'm not here to talk about my parent, or I'm not here to talk about, and I'm like, yeah, but if you think that who you are today is not entirely rooted in your childhood, and the thing that, is when kids don't feel safe with mom and dad, who are the people in life we should feel safest with, then we feel safe with nobody. It's like, if I'm not safe with that person, then I'm safe with no one.
Well,
right? And so
my sister, and that held me until she died. Once she died, it was the bottom fella.
Yeah.
And, I was on a crash course for substance use disorder. I mean, she died when I was 16. I was in a meeting at 19, so that 3 years, the fucking blur, like, no idea. So yeah, like I agree. I think IFS is the internal family systems is a really good modality for that. And like, I wouldn't consider myself an IFS therapist, but I certainly use it a lot, because I do, like, one of the questions I'll ask is when we're in a feeling, I'll ask if it's stale or not. And if it is, that, so if it is stale, then we go back, and it's like it's not when the first time that feeling happened. It's when was the first time that you can recall, like when was the first time that was an impact for you. And then really we start to look at the age and the driver, and the emotional driver is what perpetuates the behavior. Okay, so if we don't attend to behavior, we attend to the drivers. Exactly. Like, so like, and that's that, if I was going to I have a few knocks, I guess, on the world I'm living in right now. One of them is that most recovery communities, they attend to behavior, and really, like, we need to be looking at like Goleman and emotional intelligence, and then once we have some emotional intelligence, we can understand the drivers, and when we attend to the driver, then we can reconnect to another behavior that's more healthy. It's very much like
this is sounding a lot like like my entire experience at Yatra. This is what you're describing right now.
Totally.
So much of what you just said is my experience at Yatra, right? 100%. It is all about addressing those things, right? Those core beliefs that lead to those behaviors, right?
Exactly,
that's what it is. Right?
Yeah. I'm speaking about this not from a belief system, but from a from an emotion system, which is like our lungs or our heart. It's always working. Yeah. Breathing and emotions are a lot alike, because we both can control and can't control both of them. Yeah. So, if I can change my breath, but I can't stop breathing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, in emotions, I can use them with consciousness and conscious intention, but if I don't, they're still going to keep going. You know what I mean? If I pretend they're not there, then that's where it becomes maladaptive. Because it's really, I'm bracketing myself into pieces instead of being a comprehensive whole being. Yeah, you know what I mean.
And another thing that's coming up for me too is and I don't know if it's about the behavior per se, but is the fact that I do think And I think this is true of babies. Like, this is true of human beings always. We do things because it benefits us. You know, a baby cries because somebody will respond to them and change their diaper or feed them. I don't think that we start out with behaviors and then continue those behaviors if from the first time we do them, they're damaging to us or they hurt us in some way. Usually a behavior starts because at some point it's protective, it's safe, it's beneficial. And then what becomes problematic is you get to a different point in life when those behaviors are no longer protective. You know, so similar, it's like when, you know, if you're a child growing up in an unsafe space, then ego helps you feel big and tough and safe. And, you know, you kind of build yourself up because your world's not safe. And that's what you need to survive. Yeah. But then, you know, you fast forward where your world is now safe. You know, there's nobody at home who's going to hurt you anymore. But the problem is that those behaviors have become habitual or whatever it is. And now you need to, validate that they were at some point helpful to you. Yep. But also then to recognize that they're not helpful anymore. And a lot of times they become damaging. You know, what was once helpful sometimes becomes damaging. And that's when you need to really take a look at it.
100%. I mean, that's my life story. Like, ego brought me safety when I had nowhere to find it. However, it's fucking almost killed me. You know, like, and so, like, I think we need to, like, we have to process. We have to have understanding. It has to be coming into consciousness, and we need conscious intention in order to change these things. And typically, like, talk therapy. I'm doing electric neural loop therapy right now. It's really cool. Like, music and the clicking and stuff. Man, it's something else. But it's neural loop. Like, the same theory that I use in therapy is used with a machine, which is really cool. And you know, if you I don't know if you've ever read that Mark Lewis book, but it talks about how these behaviors are developed, and like, they happen when we are gaining or building, growing consciousness. So ages 5, 6, 7, like, that's when a lot of our behaviors that we have today were first brought about. And so, like, you know, like, you put me on a baseball diamond and I'll get kicked out arguing with the umpire because that's what I did when I was 7 years old, and feeling like, you know, either misunderstood, or to me, I get pissed off because I'm, like, bleeding and, you know, diving all over the place to make a play. And then the umpire makes a bad call, and I'm picking rocks out of my legs for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, fuck you, man. Like, and so, however, at 42, I didn't get kicked out of one game all year. So that's my record. I got kicked out of one last year. So, but basically what I'm saying is, I act like a child. I turn into a 7-year-old when an umpire makes a bad call. It's just like, bam, instant. Yeah. You know, and you know, that's a simple excuse, but you know, these things just they don't go away because the emotion is the sustainable carry. Without emotion, behavior is not sustainable. So we can try, like, you know, like, I want to go to the gym. Well, if I don't love it, I'm not going to keep going. I'm eventually going to stop. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's no different than, you know, when we talk about the obsession and drinking and drug use and things like that. I mean, nothing's going to change if we just attend to behaviors. But, you know, and you hear about all the time, well, I moved, geographical, right? Like, that doesn't, environment, that's not going to change it. Like, I stopped hanging out with these people, or I'm only drinking beer instead of, you know, whiskey, or, you know, none of that shit works because we're not attending to the drivers. We're not attending to update or dust off the emotions that we've had for so long that are creating these behaviors that have become unmanageable in our adult life. That, you know, probably worked when we were 6, 7, 8 years old. You know, I have
a question.
Yes, fire away.
So,
for who?
So I've watched the last 2 Wednesdays for you, Ryan. Okay. I've watched the last few Wednesdays. Have loved them. Have loved sort of seeing, like, this honest, vulnerable side of you. It's been incredible. One of the things, and you just kind of prompted this question because you said, you know, if I don't like going to the gym, I'm not going to go. So one of the things that you have sort of
you see where it's going.
One of the things that you have touched on in the last few Wednesdays, but it's kind of gotten not necessarily overlooked. I mean, I'm not saying Chuck didn't notice it, but it hasn't no one stopped you and been like, wait, like, let's talk about that. Is that, you know, in one breath you'll say, and I wish I had written it down to quote you exactly, but you had said on a number of occasions that, the thing that works, even for you, is going to a meeting, going to the meetings. But you've also, like a number of times, commented how you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so I guess there's a few questions, like, do you not like it, or is there something else you don't like and you project it onto AA? And also, if you don't like it, does that worry you in terms of the fact that because you don't like it, someday you might not go, and maybe that could be detrimental? Or anyway, so just yeah.
Okay. First question, second question I'll answer first. It's less time. I love my little girls. And so what I like, what I think, the way I feel doesn't fucking matter to me. When I'm like, I got an hour and there's a meeting and I know there's a meeting and I don't want to go, I just think about my girls and I go, you know what I mean? So that is the sustainable driver is my family. And so that's what that's about. So I don't really give a shit what I think or feel about it. If this is going to help my little girls, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? If it means putting on a ballerina outfit and walking downtown, like I'll do that. If that's going to help them. I don't care. All right,
we've talked about your love of George Michael, so whatever, anything's possible at this point, right? Yeah.
I was actually thinking I would make a saran wrap dress and walk downtown with just all smushed around,
You created a visual that
we don't need. Sorry about that at home, folks.
Yeah. So so it's just like, it's very simple. Really, in my mind, it's really simple. Like I made a promise to myself in that jail cell that I would always put my family first, and that my girls would never see me messed up. And so if I don't go to a meeting, if I go to baseball and not a meeting, which I've done once and felt incredibly guilty, if I do that, then I'm not putting my family first, and I failed in my goal, and really it's become a life goal. Yeah, and so, but I did that once, and I won't ever do that again, because I recognize how important this is to me, and that I really let myself down in that moment. Although, I know, it's not too dramatic. It's just missed a meeting, fine. But it did show me that my commitment to this needs to be 110% all the time. So that answers that question, I guess. As far as the driver question goes, the driver is love for my children, and it supersedes anything I might think or feel. Now, why do I not like it? Is that the question?
It's why, and also, is that real? Like, do you really not like it, or is it something else you don't like and you displace it or project it onto AA?
Yeah, I've done everything fucking wrong in recovery, and I guess what I really enjoy the concept, I enjoy the theory, I enjoy the community aspect. I certainly enjoy inspiration from a narrative, which I find it's just really fucking cool, to be honest with you. So there are things that I do like, and there are meetings that I like. It's just I'm not, 25 years is, I don't care about the clicks. I don't care about glittered cleavage and fucking, loud stereo systems and shiny rims, and that's the show and shine meetings that, it's just, I guess what I don't like is the disorderment, because it still shows up in people that are abstinent. And, I just know, in my past, this is changing for me slowly because I has to. But in my past, I'd know a person talking at a podium, and I'm just you don't do any of that shit. You know what I mean? And knowing that, this is also part of probably me in a state of discontent, but I'll be judging knowing you haven't paid your child support in 2 years. You still don't have your license back yet. Everything's amazing, and I'm just is it though? And then,
hold on. Let's I want to grab that right there. That is judgmental.
It is.
Right? 100%. And I think I'm not, well, whatever, I'll just call it the way I see it. That is the fucking problem, I think, for a lot of people that, and, more people I talk to that do have resentments towards the program. It is that judgmental shit on some level, right?
Yeah.
So even for you, and I can call you out on it. You're calling yourself out on it. I don't, you know what I mean? But it isn't the bullshit that's being said at the podium. It's the fact that there's people sitting in the chair judging it.
Right? Okay,
like that's to me, that's what I see as the issue there.
Okay,
right?
So traditionally,
because who fucking cares, right? Like, who cares what he's saying, right? It's just, I'm here for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I think for me too, like I'm hearing, Ryan, that when it comes to AA and what AA's goals are and what they intend to provide, that you like it. You like the community, you like the content, you like the theories, you like, but there's some of the, like, again, like for me as a muggle, as an outsider, and I have been to meetings, obviously announcing that I am there more to learn about what happens in meetings. But like to hear like glitter cleavage and big rims and stuff like that, like when I think of AA, that doesn't even come to mind for me. And so
I think like that's when I hear you, as it is in like literal, though, right? When I'm wrong, when I say that, right?
But again, it's like that's not really AA, though. Like,
no, it's not. That's people.
That's not AA. Like what I'm hearing is that you actually like AA, but you dislike. You struggle that some people are there being dishonest. They're not. And again, that hurts them more than it hurts anybody.
Yeah. I'm just talking about the things that drive me away. Like, and it has to do, if I'm in judgment.
But can you focus? Can you shift your focus to the things that matter, that are helping you, and leave that shit aside?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's the whole point.
That's my thing, is that you still say, as recently as Wednesday, that you don't like it. No. And I'm just like, if you shift that in your own mind, which I think would, if it happened, would shift in your language, would that be helpful to you?
Can I go real quick before you answer that one, Ryan? I think that's what he's saying. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Is that is the thing that you are working on? Is taking, you know what I mean, putting that shit aside. Those are the resentments that take you out of the rooms.
Yes, I'm talking about the traditional, like the history of it. This is what I, like if I'm in judgment, it's reflective. Like if I'm in judgment, I'm probably like, I'm going to use AA terms, but the restless, irritable, and discontent is the disconnect of the sunshine of the spirit. So if we are in a state of happy, joyous, and free, we're usually living in spiritual alignment. We're in the but if I'm like, if I'm noticing like that guy drank 4 cups of coffee and didn't put anything in the 7th tradition, you know what I mean? Judgment. Like if I'm like, look at those shoes. I bet you, and I'll tell a whole life story based on what kind of shoes the guy's wearing. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not a good story. So like, those are the things that now they're flags, they're markers that, hey man, I'm really wasting my energy putting it into something that is completely senseless, useless, and more harmful than anything. But it's also reflective of my need to protect, right? Again, like, the other issues is like, I have an anxiety disorder, and every time I go to a meeting, it just spikes, especially the bigger the meeting, the more, and the only way traditionally that I've been able to effectively combat that is arrogance and ego. And so, in that way, it makes me better than, and for that, I can stay. But if I'm less, but I feel less than, and so there's a disconnect. I don't want you to find out how shitty I feel, because I want to, and that's so when I'm judging that guy at the podium, who am I really judging, right? Myself, because there go I, how many times did I stand at a podium and talk about how amazing my life was while, debt collectors are calling and all the girls I'm sleeping with found out about each other, and just all those little stupid things that add up, like that are not in alignment with my values. And so
hiding a George Michael CD in the Jeep, right?
Right.
Those types of things, right?
I just name it something else.
Just a different case, right?
Yeah. It's like Method Man. Yeah.
I love
Wu-Tang.
I might name
Wu-Tang.
I might name this episode I Love George Michael. I might just do it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I won't let you down. It's stuck in my head right now. Yeah, so no, and to right like where I'm at today, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
say whatever the hell you want. Then I take what I can and leave the rest. Like, I got way bigger fish to fry than worrying about, somebody's appearance of false optics. But it does. The inauthenticity has always given me anxiety when I experience it. And it makes me almost reactionary. And like in my past, it would be someone telling me about how much money they make or something. I get really sarcastic and fucking mean, like, because my anxiety would show up and I would respond to that with basically trying to make them look like idiots. And now I don't do that, but I do get anxiety when I feel that incongruency, So like nobody shows up to these recovery rooms because it was a good day. Like everybody's got fucked up in some sense. And so we have a community full of people that suffer with substance use disorder, which is a malady. Like, and so, but those that have had this transformation, they carry a higher frequency in their being, and like that becomes attractive. So there are people that have done really well in reclaiming, I guess, some sense of a spiritual connection, and you can see it in their eyes. Like it's attractive, and those are the people that can stand in the mirror without any discomfort, and those are the people that don't have secrets and live by values and don't need to lie. And like that's kind of where I want to go. That's where I want to be. And then the other things that stand in my way are like the things that I know beyond. Like if we really look at it, like step 4 and 5 is pretty unethical. Like we talk about deep trauma that you're going through with somebody who's not trained to hear that and close that up or able to integrate that.
With a drywaller, as you've said in the past, right?
I've said, right.
No respect to the noble drywalling profession. I'm disrespecting that to the right. Yeah, but
I do want to like, I want to shift my lens on that a little bit. In that, it's worked for so many people. That's without a doubt. But what we don't know is how many people have this like trauma response that ends up in relapse. Like, and it'll never be like, well, it's because I did my step 5 and my sponsor couldn't close my trauma out properly. Like, you never hear that. But
I think it might not even be that so much as I thought it was enough, right? I thought it was enough that like I thought I didn't need anything more, right? Or I was convinced that I didn't need medication, or I was, you know what I mean? Like these things that can happen in the rooms. I don't think it's so much that, not all the time. You're probably right though. Like way more often than we'll ever know. All of a sudden I'm addressing deep trauma with a drywaller, and okay, that's a problem, right? Like that's a real problem. But maybe it's just that I would think it's maybe more often that the person you're not addressing that trauma properly. You know what I mean? Like to sit there and do a step 4, step 5, right? You're not addressing it, but you think that you've done enough because you did this step 4 and the step 5 with whoever you did it with. And now you move on and you're like, I'm better. That's not sustainable. Because you never did address the thing that got you to there in the first place.
Especially the drivers, right? And that's not, it's going to be out of the understanding of most people, most sponsors. Like they just do what they were taught. And I did the same thing for years, like, I've listened to
think about it works really great for the people it works for.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't,
and that's,
totally, dude. Like I said, from
really well for the people it works for, right?
From a perspective of a member of that community, I am not against it. As a therapist, I see it as unethical, and they're different hats. You know what I mean? So that therapist actually doesn't really belong in AA because I'm just going to pick things apart, and like, so I kind of much less passionate about calling that out than I once was. Like
not that long ago, right?
No, not that long ago at all. But as far as the other thing is, like, I'm a big believer in traditions, and the traditions seem to be, I'm not going to say lost, but I don't see a lot of people practicing them or understanding them or wanting to talk about them much in the rooms. And the way that, like I said, I started a long time ago with some guys the guys I looked up to got sober in the late 40s, and they were all And so I listened to them and the way that they talked about the traditions being so important. And like, to me, it's a really important thing. It essentially is the rules of the community that create a structure that brings a safety to that therapeutic community. And so it is, and that shit I really believe in, like that connection piece, the ability, just like there's an old saying, like a shipwreck, we share a common bond, and like survivors of a shipwreck, we share a common bond, and like there is, if you experience trauma with somebody. And you have an ability to talk about that, the relationship is much different than any other relationship you'll ever have, because of that level of like, I guess, shared hurt or something that, everyone that walks through those doors knows what it's like to suffer and to be in pain and to live in shame, especially shame. Like, and so there is like really something really cathartic about that. Like right now, I'm not in a space to pick anything apart. Like, I don't give a shit. Right now, everything is about my family and doing what I can to ensure that they have every opportunity in their lifetime to be successful in whatever they define success as. And so, like, what somebody's wearing, what they're sharing at the podium, I don't care. If I don't like it, I don't care. If I do like it, I'm going to take it home. And so I just, I want to stay an asset. I want to stay in a place that I can choose a lens of beauty easily. And sometimes that is a difficult thing to do when I'm in a state of constant stress, or, like, all the shit I've been going through sucks. But I have been practicing to see the world through a lens of beauty. And that just kind of, it's a shift. It's a psychosomatic connection that creates an alignment that removes the void that I usually fill with either anxiety, depression, or ego, or fucking booze. Like, you know what I mean? And so now that what that's filled with is a connection from one, human spirit to another, which I would define as the true essence of spirituality.
And that's one of those things, Ryan. And I don't think we were recording the last time that I kind of started talking about this, but the thing about whatever your thoughts are, and I know, Lisa, I'm pretty sure that I've said it with you in an episode or two, maybe, but whatever your thoughts are about 12-step, the fellowship is so important. And so, like, you've heard me say, like, that first 30 days doesn't happen without the rooms. There's no fucking way it happens without the rooms. The fellowship is by far the most important thing that brings to the table for everybody in early recovery. That sense of, that guy has been there. You know what I mean? Like, this is, I'm with my people right now, because nobody gets it. Like a muggle, like, Lisa, you have spent half your life trying to get it. Right?
Yeah.
And you're closer to it than 99.9% of the people that haven't been through it. But even you, admittedly, will never really understand it.
Nope.
You know
and
what
I tell
mean,
people
right?
that all the time.
Yeah, of course you do, right? Yeah,
I'm very
right.
aware now that I will never get it.
So,
you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
So to be able to surround yourself in that is so important, right? So important, especially in the early days, right? When
I think
you're
for
just
me,
when you're white knuckling it and just trying to get through,
The reason I kind of brought this up, this question, is because, one of the things that I will often do when I'm working with a patient is something that I refer to and was taught to me by another psychiatrist is IQ, EQ. And so IQ being what you're thinking, EQ being what you're feeling. And what you think and how you speak to yourself affects how you feel. Right. So, like, I'll do this with a patient. If they say something, and often they say it and they don't even realize they've said it in the way that I might notice as an outsider, but I'll sometimes say, okay, wait for a minute. Like, and I will repeat back something they've said that I think had like a negative tone to it, and I'll say to them, like, I want you to and I'll say it back. I want them to hear it coming from me. And I'll say, how does that feel? And we'll go through physically how it feels. Like, do they feel tension in their body? Do they feel
Can you give us an
heaviness?
example, Lisa? Like a literal, like.
Oh, okay.
I know that puts you
it
on
should
the
be
spot,
easy.
but give me like a quick phrase. Ryan, maybe you can pick something out that works, whatever, right? But just
I do have an example.
Okay, go for it.
This guy's in group, and he is in the spotlight, I guess, and he goes, "Fuck off," with his hand like that. And so I repeated that to him with emotion. And I said, are you really saying fuck off? Because this is telling me that you just want everyone to go away. It doesn't necessarily mean fuck off. It means I'm scared. I feel alone. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling pressure. You know what I mean? And so when we start to hit that, you could feel as soon as I said alone, you felt the whole room shift because that feeling matched what he was experiencing. And so by him saying fuck off, it actually meant I'm scared and alone and I don't want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that what you were meaning, Andy? So
that, I mean, again, you can do this with anything that's any kind of negative, whether it's anger. And again, because I'm seeing people in the role as a psychiatrist, I don't often have anger targeted at me, but what I hear more is a lot of negative self-talk, right? Like they'll say like, I'm a fucking piece of shit, right? And I'll be like, hey, wait a minute. And I'll say to them, you're a fucking piece of shit.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought you were going with.
Right. And I will say to them, like, how does that feel? Right. And I'll be like, and I'll get them, and sometimes when we first start using that in therapy, they struggle to sort of get there, but I'll say, okay, like I'm gonna put that on. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm a piece of shit. And I'll be like, okay, like I feel sick to my stomach. Like I feel tension in my shoulders. I feel kind of ashamed of myself. I feel sad. I feel scared that the world's not going to like me anymore. And so we'll go through that. And then I'll say to them, I'm going to reframe that. So this is the shift in IQ would be, I've made some really big mistakes in my life that I'm really disappointed in myself for. And I'm like, how does that feel? And then they'll be like, okay, that feels kind. It feels compassionate. It feels hopeful. It feels, and so when you're doing it, you never want to reframe it into rainbows and butterflies. It's not like, I'm an amazing person. It's like, that's not what you were trying to say. You were trying to capture the fact that you're disappointed in yourself, that you have, you're acknowledging you've done some really terrible things in life, but you can reframe and say the same thing in a way that shifts how you feel. It'll shift how you feel emotionally. It'll shift how you feel physically. And so that idea that the way we say things affects how we feel. So again, with Ryan saying, yeah, I could go to these meetings, but like, I hate it. I don't like going. Okay. When I hear that, if I put that on, that feels heavy to me. That's like, fuck, like gotta go to another meeting. Like, it weighs me down. But then he did it in this session. He said, well, actually, you know what? There's some things I don't like about it, but I like the community. I like the theory. I like, that there's hope in these rooms or there's inspiration in these rooms. And all of a sudden, he's speaking his truth. We're not making up something that's not real. But even for me to hear him speak that, I'm like, okay, like that feels lighter. It feels more hopeful. It feels more positive. And so it affects how you feel. So the reason I brought it up is because hearing him say that, I was like, okay, that's not his full reality or he wouldn't be going. But I think I always say to people, what you say to me is the tip of the iceberg to what you might be saying to yourself and thinking to yourself. And so when there's something negative coming out of your mouth to the world, I think that there's a whole undercurrent of stuff that you're not actually saying to me or telling me. But if you can start to recognize that, maybe I can change the way I say that and still be honest about it, but change the way I frame it, it might change how I feel about it, And again, if it's something that works, then whether it's Ryan or anybody else, then I sure hope that your mental space is such that you continue to do it. Because the gift of that is ongoing sobriety, recovery beyond abstinence. And that's obviously what we wish for anybody.
To be honest with you, I think it's really stale. And I think it's a residual of arrogance from my previous beliefs and protecting my own addiction by hating the solution. You know what I mean? And so, I think it's more of a trigger point than it is a conscious statement. If I'm really sitting here thinking about it, because the reality is like, I don't mind. The way I feel about myself now and the way I felt about myself 98 days ago. Where's my thing? I want to know exactly how long. 97 days ago. My perception has completely shifted and the way I feel about myself has completely changed. And so it could be just a residual Like with our ego, if our ego is threatened, it's like backing a rabid dog into a corner. Like it's gonna do what it can to survive. And so that might be just my ego just trying to hold on, like because the reality is it's like I once in a while I'm like, fuck, I don't want to go, but I go anyway, But most of the time I'm fine to go, and I've been going in an area that I've never done any recovery, so I go to meetings without knowing anyone. They don't know me, which is it's kind of nice, to be honest with you. Like the problem is that I'm not. I have anxiety, and when I have anxiety, I'm not social. So I go in, I might share, put my toonie in the bin, and when we're done, I leave. And so I probably need to open that up a little bit more, but yeah, I kind of like the anonymous element to it right now. Like when because I go to a meeting in Surrey, I'm going to land the clients, and that stops. Like, as soon as I see a client anywhere, I'm no longer a human being. I'm a therapist, and I have to live by those ethical standards. And so, like, technically, I'm not even supposed to share if I have a client in a meeting. I'm not supposed to sponsor people, and like, so it is, becoming a counselor definitely is more than just sitting down with somebody for 50 minutes at a time. There is a lot that comes with it, as and the amount of, there's a big difference between helping someone and being paid to help somebody. What I've noticed is that it's my job, when I'm helping someone there, it takes from me. It takes something from me. But when I'm helping somebody as a service or member of the recovery communities, then I actually get something, And so the payment for that is like self-esteem, with all the intrinsic resources. Whereas with work, the payment is money. You know what I mean? And when it becomes about being paid in money, then when it comes about being paid in money, it takes away from the spirit of connection. I think
that money is buying something from you, so yeah, it stands to reason that you're taking. It's like any job, anything. You're selling your time to your boss, or you're selling your, in this your time and your thoughts with or whatever it is, right? Your skills with your client. So it does.
Yes, but it doesn't enrich the human spirit. Is my point.
No, I see. It's exactly what you're saying. Yeah, that's transactional. Right.
It is, and that's what led to burnout. That's what led to. It was a part of relapse. It was,
Daily Gratitude Course are brought to you by the Yatra Trauma Center here in Krabi, Thailand, where I reside. Check them out, guys. They treat trauma. They do it very, very, very well. All of a sudden, where addiction is smoke, trauma is fire. You learn more at H-Way
Why don't we move on to my favorite part of the show?
That's Daily Gratitudes.
Let's start with you, Ryan.
Random.
Well, I guess I'm grateful for
George
Michael.
Yeah, and the institution that is Wham.
Yeah, not just Wham, man. It gets better after Wham. Shaking the dice. Okay. Back to fucking Earth. I'm grateful for all of the, one thing I'll say, like when I went through my thing, it was people in recovery that all showed up. And so I'm grateful for all those people that believe in me when I couldn't believe myself, and that have really shown up and were happy to do so. And they would tell me it's them paying me back, and no, I don't think that's it. It's not transactional like that. I think my friends need me, I'm going to show up, and when I need them, they show up, and so I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for forgiveness. I'm grateful for intrinsic resource. I'm grateful for alignment, connection, and of course my beautiful family. I'm always grateful for. And you guys, sure, why not?
Lisa, what you grateful for today?
I'm going to be super not deep today and say I'm grateful that I'm not at work. In a 7-day span, I've got 3 24-hour call shifts, and it doesn't happen to me very often, thankfully. But that's the week I'm in, and so I'm back to work tomorrow at 8:00 in the morning for another 24 hours.
Hey.
I'm bloody thankful that I have today off.
Well, that's the thing about gratitude; they don't always have to be deep, right? So
yeah,
and, I'll say, I was thinking about this the other day, Lisa, and when I was scheduling somebody in for a weekend ramble or working on scheduling them. And I was like, hey, listen, here's the thing. Saturdays are like, that's it. We do it at this time, period. Right? Like we don't move that around. Lisa's schedule is what Lisa's schedule is. But I was thinking about that afterwards. I was like, it's pretty amazing. And I'm really grateful. And we've said this before, but like that you somehow have moved your schedule or whatever you have done to be able to be here every Saturday at that time is pretty amazing, because you got a life. I mean, look, you have a job that gives you 3 24-hour shifts in a week, right? And and you're a mom and your wife and a daughter and a sister and all those things. So I'm very grateful for your time, and I just thank you. And
You're
of course,
very
Ryan,
welcome.
I'm really happy that you're back. The band's back together. It makes me happy. Right? It does, man. Right? I missed you in a big way. And of course, I'm grateful to every single person who continues to like, comment, share, do all of those things down at the bottom. Every time you do these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to continue making humble living, spreading the message. The message is this: if you're in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start a lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, pray, go to church. I don't give a shit. Do whatever it is you got to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. If you have a loved one who's suffering an addiction right now, just taking the time to listen to this conversation, if you just take 1 more minute out of your day and text that person, let them know they're loved. Use the words,
You are loved.
A little remote just might be the thing that brings them back to job.